You're watching Diecast Breakdown with Chuck Ellis, David Johns, and Mark McHotwheel. So sit back, strap in, and hang on. The breakdown starts now.
Hey there, folks. Chuck here, and welcome to Diecast Breakdown. I'm so glad you're here today. I am joined, as I frequently am, by my co-hosts, Mr. David Johns. How are you, David?
Doing good. What's up, Chuck?
And Mr. Mark, Make Driven Dreams. How you doing, Mark?
Doing great, Chuck. Thanks for asking.
We're
Glad to be here.
We're still figuring out that last name. It's going to be a never-ending project.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
But before we get too much further, we want to thank our very special patrons, the executive producer level people that help keep the lights on much more than everybody else, although we are grateful for all of you. That would be Video Geek Productions, Donald Raschick, First and 64th Customs, Mr. TWYCE Diecast, and Mr. Org. No longer Dotson Man Diecast. It's drivendreams.org. And for those of you who don't know, drivendreams.org is the charity that Mark runs that we are partnered with that is going to raise 24,000 brand new cars for kids in need in 2024. We raised almost 13,000. Well, Mark and Kember raised almost 13,000. Everybody. Somebody gave, what was it, 3,000 cars?
Yep. Somebody gave 3,000 cars.
One guy gave 3,000 brand new cars. Out of that 13,000-ish was one guy. So we got a lot of ground to cover this year, but that means we only need 12,000 people to give 2 cars. And I know Mr. Derek over at Honest Diecast has 12,000 subscribers. So Mr. Derek,
one person, everybody.
He could get, each of his subscribers gives 2 cars. So anyway, I'm really excited to have Mr. Steve Johnston of House of Cars Las Vegas on. You might recognize him if you've ever seen that little independent show on History Channel called Pawn Stars. He was that toy expert that told people that their dreams were just dreams and then made some dreams a reality.
They weren't driven dreams. They were
not driven dreams. They were just dreams of fortune and glory, and a lack of basic understanding of economics. But fortunately, he's not here to dash our dreams tonight. He's here to hang out and talk tiny cars with us. So, Steve, how you doing today? Thanks for coming on.
Very good. And yes, I have crushed quite a few dreams. So that is spot on.
The dream crusher.
That is a nickname that I have earned.
We'll come back to Pawn Stars in a little bit, but we're here mostly to talk about House of Cars Las Vegas. And for the people that are living under a rock, tell us a little bit about House of Cars and where you fit into this whole crazy game.
Well, so for House of Cars, I'm the director of operations, primarily for our entertainment side. But I work directly with our retail team on our retail locations. And we have licensed locations throughout the United States, including one here in Las Vegas, which is also home for me. We have one in Ripon, California, Riverside, California, one in Virginia, one in North Carolina, one in Florida. We have one in New Mexico. We have one in Detroit. We have one coming online in Texas and one coming online in Washington State later this year. And looks like we're probably going to be doing something international as well. And that'll be an announcement that we'll hopefully make soon. But we're definitely moving and shaking when it comes to the House of Cars brand, and excited to really get involved with this diecast community to the levels that we do. For me, I get to do a lot of the exciting stuff, which is the events, the conventions, producing different business relationships that we have with business partners, and doing those things, and then being able to bring that to the consumer, bring it to and look, at the end of the day, our whole network is family, right? And we really focus that way. So it's really nice to be involved with an organization that's the focus.
I'm really curious because you don't just wake up one day and become the toy expert on Pawn Stars and the head of events and creative whatevers for House of Cars. So let's go back in time a little bit and tell us where that love of toys and diecast came from.
Well, as early as I can remember, my father would always tell me, I cut my teeth on Star Wars. So I started with Star Wars toys, and I vividly remember 1984, 85, going to a yard sale, and there was this massive collection of Star Wars figures and play sets and all this stuff and everything. And I tell this story because I think it's really like paramount for my storyline, which is I was able to negotiate first with my parents to spend the money on it that the guy wanted. And then I was able to buy all of it. And I kept everything like in pristine condition. And I did that with all of my toys. So when I played with the toy, it would go back on the shelf and then it would come back off. And I realized like if I kept the stuff in good shape, someone else might be willing to do it. And later on, I remember selling my Masters of the Universe collection. It wasn't for a lot of money. I was a kid, right? I might have sold it for maybe $100, right? Which at the time was pretty good. But I sold all these figures, all these play sets, all of this stuff. And I was able to turn that into other items. So then when you fast forward, my mom was always into what things were worth, right? So we always had the price guides. We always had all of those things that would be of interest. So as I got a little bit older, got into high school, I turned an interest towards Hot Wheels. And it's funny because it comes back full circle for me. Because I turned my interest towards Hot Wheels. I started going out and I was collecting cars. And you're talking, this is in 1994, right? So in 95, we all know what happened, right? All of a sudden, 3 cars over a 2-month period showed up into stores, had a little dollar sign on the package, and we got introduced to the treasure hunt. Well, it wasn't like it was today where you're told, hey, the treasure hunt is going to be available out there. This is what you're looking for. Like, it wasn't like that. It just showed up, right? So I caught on to that really quick. And I thought, well, you know what? Guys are going to really want these. And now that I started connecting with more collectors, more and more people wanted stuff I was finding. So it became that whole everyone's story, right? I started chasing retail. I started buying multiples of everything. I started trading and selling for the stuff I wanted. And I just kind of kept going with it. So I really started to turn that into a thing. And so I think what really was a precipice of like kicked off my resale capabilities was when the JCPenney's treasure hunt set hit JCPenney's, they actually shipped to the stores before the catalogs were out. And I caught on to it and found out I lived in Southern Oregon, and I found out that these sets were sitting in the stores waiting for the wish book to come out, right? So I took and I started asking, hey, can I buy them? Can I buy them? Can I buy them? And all they had was an invoice at that time. They didn't have what it was supposed to sell for because it wasn't in their system yet because it wasn't supposed to be for sale. So they just looked at the invoice and they said, well, I guess they're supposed to be $199. We'll sell you one a day. And then I ran to the next JCPenney's and said, hey, this one will sell me one a day. Will you sell me one? And so on. And I bought 15 sets before the wish book came out. So I had 1595 treasure hunt.
That's a big risk.
Stacked up in my room. Well, and the reason being is because at the time, you got to think in 1995, it was regional. So it was hard to find some of these cars. It wasn't as easy eBay wasn't quite what it is now. You didn't have the selling platforms. So for me, it was I would go up to Portland, to the Portland swap meet to sell my toys. And so I would look at it as an opportunity. I was like, I could break all of these out and I'll sell all the cars individually and I'll make more money. That was my thought until I realized what people were willing to pay for the sets at that time. And I sold none of those sets for anything less than $3,000 in
That's crazy.
And 6, right? Because it came out Christmas time. But yeah, it was incredible for a 17-year-old kid to make that kind of move, right? And at the same time, I was buying all the Spawn figures, all the Star Wars figures, all the G.I. Joe stuff. And I was starting to turn and make money off this stuff. And that's what really like spurred my interest on more. So I started off as a childhood collector, and then I got really interested in the business side of the hobby. And then through my career, I was a DJ for a long time. I was able to travel because of my hours. I could go hunt toys and it didn't affect my work. And then I started to develop clients. And then when I moved in 2004 to Las Vegas, I sold 2 toys I thought I'd never sell, which was a sealed in the package Optimus Prime and a sealed in the package Megatron. They were both perfect condition. And the grading company, AFA, had just incepted. And this client that I had kept pestering me about buying it, finally offered me 3 times market value for both figures.
Wow.
And at that point, I'm like, I have to sell them, right? So I sold them to him. Of course, he graded them. He saw the future, made a bunch of money off it. It was great, but it was cool. But once then, everything became for sale. And at that point, then it became a full-fledged business for me. Whereas before, it was really to like facilitate my hobby. Then it became an actual business. And so everything became for sale. And for our watchers, I had over 350 red lines that were C8 or better in condition. I had a pearl white Camaro that was an 8, which we all know what that would do now. At the time, it was worth about $8,000 to $10,000. I sold the entire collection to 2 different dealers, and I cleared just about $40,000 in 2005 when I sold that collection. And then from there, I just rinse and repeat, started hunting toys down for people and everything. Opened a store in Las Vegas. When I opened the store in Las Vegas, quickly expanded that and built that up, and got lucky enough to get contacted by the show and said, hey, we may be looking for someone to come in and do our toys. Would you be interested? Said, sure. And went over, talked to them, and really, really interesting conversation, but went and talked to them, and they invited me to be involved. And when I went over there, I said, well, when do you need me to start? And they said, can you start Thursday? And I'm like, it's Tuesday. And they said, yes, we know. I said, absolutely. So
yeah, we gave you a day.
That's how I incepted the Toy Expert.
We'll be back with more Diecast Breakdown after this word from our sponsors.
Hey, this is Larry Wood, and you're watching Diecast Breakdown.
Want to slurp in style? Pick up the new Diecast Breakdown mug, available exclusively at FireballTimGarage.art. Check out his amazing selection of automotive, diecast, and Hollywood-themed wares. There's Hot, then there's Fireball. FireballTimGarage.art. Diecast Breakdown would like to thank Diecast Heroes Magazine for supporting this program. Diecast Heroes Magazine is the premier digital and print resource just for diecast customizers. Visit diecastheroes.com and see what the best customizers in the world are up to. Here's this week's small channel shout-out.
Curbs Garage.
If you have a favorite Diecast channel with less than 700 subscribers and you'd like to see them highlighted on a future episode, email us at diecastbreakdown@gmail.com.
Hey, this is Chad Reed from Round 2, and you're watching Diecast Breakdown.
And now back to Diecast Breakdown.
Mark and I had a blast at the show last March. Unfortunately, had to press pause on going this year. We'll be back in 25, guaranteed, with Chuck. The whole crew will be there. We had an absolute killer time. I'm just curious, like, it is a huge undertaking to put on this show, and it's so well received. What is House of Cars' philosophy on offering such a big event to collectors? Why do they do it? Why do they go to the trouble of doing this show?
Well, first I have to tell you that when you go back to the roots of where the show started, CJ Kramer and Lauren Lisa, who are the CEO and CFO of the company, CJ was really passionate about diecast and about cars, and started getting involved with some of the other shows that were going on, and had an opportunity came about where if he didn't continue it, probably the show wasn't going to move on. And so he took it, but then rebranded it into what we know now as the Diecast Super Convention, or the Vegas Super Convention at first. And his focus was really, let's give the diecast community a place to come and like celebrate and enjoy each other every year. And something that is fun and has events and has activations and has involvement with the collector. And he really looked at it from a standpoint of, let's try to get to a point where we can get manufacturers to do an exclusive for us, but let's offer exclusive offerings for the show. Let's do some of the things that me as a collector would love to do. And that's what he did. And so he started building the show, and it started with a very small footprint, 400 people, a weekend of just enjoying diecast, having fun, trading in their rooms and all of that. And then just continued to work and scale. And for a long time, I think he was satisfied that it was a well-oiled machine. But as he got going, other opportunities or other things come about. He started looking at other areas of shows and other things, and started doing more toy-related shows as well. And that's how I got involved. Was the first year that I was involved with the Diecast Super Convention, he did a thing called the World Toy Expo as part of the Diecast show. because for a long time, the Diecast show, you couldn't put enough vendors together to satisfy a few thousand people to come out and be happy with their experience. Right.
Yep.
So he really looked at it and said, okay, well, we can, improve this model by putting a more variety on the floor. And that worked really, really well for multitudes of years. And in fact, last year we infused the Vegas Toy Show into the Diecast Super Convention. Coming up for 2024, we had a focus coming out of 23, which is we really want to bring it back to the true diecast roots because we think we found the right home. We think we've got the right things in place. And more importantly, not only was the collector community receptive to how we were really building this show and growing it, but also the manufacturers started to be. And that was a key element because you always had involvement from manufacturers, especially, and I have to give a lot of credit to Hot Wheels. And there's a funny story about that I'll tell you guys about how that all came about. But his relationship with Hot Wheels was there was a sponsorship involved with Hot Wheels that's kind of like grandfathered in. As long as he produces a diecast show, Hot Wheels has pledged to be involved some way, form, or fashion. And he was able to take that and really turn that into something. Well, this last year, I think what we did is we were able to really help the manufacturer understand that there was a scalability within the show in getting information to the consumers. And I think that really was set off in such a positive fashion last year that it allowed us to steamroll into what we're doing for 2024. And what we're doing is the Vegas Toy Show is no longer incorporated into the show. In fact, we're bringing back a brand that was called the Vegas Toy Con, which will actually be in April. And so the show here at the beginning of March, the Diecast Super Convention, is really going to be predicated on diecast, focused on diecast. Our guests are all based around the world of automotive, diecast. And what we did was we were able to start building relationships with some of the manufacturers that had not been involved. And now we have an incredible group that are coming out. I think this is probably the largest amount of presentations from manufacturers that we've had. And last year, I kind of threw a Hail Mary because one of the things Hot Wheels hadn't done was present. They had not done any presentations at any of the shows. They had been there. They had sent their designers. They had done signing sessions. They had been involved with the community, but they actually hadn't been on stage doing a presentation.
Yeah.
And in Orlando, I was able to ask Brendan Vertusky and Brian if Hot Wheels could do a presentation at our Orlando show this last year. And come to find out, they just felt like they'd never been asked.
Yeah,
so
a quick fix.
We were able to open that up, and Hot Wheels made their first presentation at our show. And then from there, Weekend of Wheels, they did a presentation. And again, we'll be doing one at the Diecast Super Convention. So this just kind of kickstarts the whole thing because once that happened, all the manufacturers are like, we have to be involved with being there. And so that's what we've got for 2024 is we're really bringing in the manufacturer element to the show. We brought Jada Toys on as a title sponsor. We want to thank Jada very much. They've been incredibly gracious with what they're doing. Greenlight came on as a second tier. Neverland came on as a second tier sponsor. GMA has a new line that's being introduced at the Diecast Super Convention. They came on as a sponsor. And then we still had our sponsorships with Hot Wheels, with Maisto, with M2. All of these are lines that these manufacturers we have absolutely had a relationship with over the years. And they're all now coming in. They're all going to do presentations. And most of them are planning to drop some piece of news, something new to the industry for the first time at the Diecast Super Convention, which I think is a massive, massive thing for the hobby.
Yeah, you got to be there to hear it first.
And something we did for that on purpose because that's being done is we also are making it available for people to actually be able to watch the streamed presentations. So we will stream those out. There is a way. There's actually, you can go to the website, diecastsupercon.com, and you can actually purchase the virtual version of the convention where you'll be able to actually
cool.
watch these presentations and at least be able to see some of the things that go on, plus the morning show of 5 Points, which is hosted by SRT Jovita, and her midday show, which is In the Pit. All of those will be streamed into that platform for people to be able to see. And then we'll, of course, have that information to be able to put out after the show, either through the manufacturers directly or through our social media channels or whatever it might be.
That's pretty cool because, like we said, we can't be there this year. We'd love to, but it'd be good to be able to go in there and get kind of firsthand, not there, but see things first. And so I'll definitely look into doing that.
Well, and getting some of those announcements, right? Okay, so I come from the toy side, right? So I'm thinking big picture stuff, right? Now, Diecast is very, very diversified into its own group, right? It reminds me of sports cards, right? Sports card hobby, that type collector is relatively the same. Then when you get in the toy world, they're a little more, they're open to different things and ideas, right? Some guys like all they collect is muscle cars here, right? Or in the sports car world, all they collect is a certain player or whatever it is.
Right.
So because of that, like we felt, and I looked at it, I'm like, sometimes you live and die on the only thing that you're interested in your hobby space. Let's hope we can find a way to get something interesting to you. Because sometimes that's hard, right?
Yep.
And so what we've done is we really talked to the manufacturers and we're like, look, we think this is a beautiful opportunity for you to be able to put some news out in the space, something new. And I attributed it to how Comic-Con was built, right? As San Diego Comic-Con became the announcement for the movie houses, right? To make their announcements. And then I go back and I started looking at the manufacturers and it's like, look, I can go at 10, 15 years. Funko came in, started announcing new lines they were doing. Mattel jumped on board. Hasbro jumped on board. And all of a sudden that became a exclusives convention, exclusives and announcements. And that's what we're hoping to really grow this brand too. I do believe that we're on our way there. I think this year is a big stepping stone for that. And if you needed any indication of it, Greenlight is back involved with a show exclusive. Greenlight hasn't done a show exclusive in over 10 years. So they'll be there. Jada has some exclusive offerings. We've got the first time announcement of a product last year with Neverland. And now this year we had GMA making an announcement of a new product line that's in the diecast hobby. So what you're seeing is that this is really growing to a capacity to where I believe this show is going to be the premier show. I already feel like we're there, but I really feel like this show really is scaling to be the premier location to come find out first about new diecast, get cool exclusives from the multitude of manufacturers. And look, we've worked with M2 Maisto, Round 2 for years in producing House of Cards exclusives that were show exclusives, right? We've had show exclusives, but now the manufacturer is coming in to produce an exclusive that they distribute.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, we actually just covered the Greenlight exclusive on our last episode where we had SRT Jovita on. Really cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing, and it's a nod to CJ Kramer. His absolute like greatest of all time anything is Michael Jordan, and there's a nod. The Raging Bull. There's a nod to Michael Jordan in there, and it was more of because of like his perseverance, but the fact that Lee from Nuclear Mind Designs was really able to articulate a design and work with Greenlight on it. See, and this is what's great is we're taking designers that are out of the space, and these designers over the years, especially Lee is I think the leader in the clubhouse here, where he's the guy that now he's doing exclusives for these manufacturers. They're going to him and he's doing art for them to give them a new creative look and mind or whatever. And so to be able to put that all together and to make it fit the way it did is so, so cool. And so we're really excited about that piece. And then on top of it, our distribution we're doing something unique, right? We've got distribution of the regular car. And then we also have a raw chase party where you can come, you'll get a chase, you get to meet some of the team. You get to kind of get the behind the scenes information and stuff like that. And again, all kinds of exclusive experiences that we're creating with the Diecast SuperCon. And there's a lot more, and I'll let you guys get to some questions. I could talk all night, but definitely want to get to some questions with you guys. But there's even more going on this year than we've ever had at the Diecast Super Convention when it comes to programming.
This year is the year to go.
Yeah, and we are not. Well, Mark has a good excuse at least.
I'm the only one.
I'll be honest, I was disappointed you guys weren't going because you guys have been so gracious with us.
Oh, well, thank you.
And because of that, we really wanted to give you guys an experience to where this year we built a streamer stage. So streamers, if they would like to record some content while they're at the show, they can reach out to us now, schedule a time, and actually get access to the stage to be able to shoot their content.
No, it's we are heartbroken we can't be there, but Mark at least has a good excuse. He's got a baby on the way, and I just the flight from Florida to Las Vegas is just a little bit outside of my budget this year. But next year we're there. Sure.
Hopefully next year we'll have a bigger budget next
exactly.
year. So.
We're working really hard on growing the channel this year. We're posting literally every day this year. We're doing a short or we're doing a video, and we've made it 29 days so far of posting every single day of the year because we really want to get those numbers up so we can afford to do then again work with Mark's charity and raise those cars, because it's just been such a fulfilling thing to be able to use this platform to do good in the community and be a voice for our fellow collectors and have folks like you on and get kind of the behind the scenes of stuff. And we've got really cool opportunities that we would have never had otherwise to ask the questions that, a lot of us have and don't get to ask. And House of Cars, I think, is just one of the coolest things in the hobby, because you guys are doing basically what we set out to do when we did this show. Was we wanted to centralize things. We wanted to make it so that people had a resource like, here's where you go if you want diecast news. Here's where you go if you want to see the latest drops on things. If you want to see and doing that and combining it with retail, I think is such a brilliant thing. That the way you've got this non-franchise franchise, and that's kind of the thing that I want to talk to you about next. Is we've talked about this briefly, but House of Cars is I really think the first of its kind, because I really don't think there's been a diecast focused multi-location brick and mortar retail store out there before this one, and definitely not at this scale. So let's talk about that really quick. Tell us a bit about that model and how that started and where it's going.
So when CJ and Lauren opened the Ripon, California location, I think their intentions were very similar to how I opened my stores in a way. And I'd given some feedback to CJ and we'd had some discussions. And also Johnny from the Toy Shack and previous toy expert had a lot of feedback into it. And really what CJ wanted to do is he's like, look, I know that I would drive miles if I had a location that I could go, then I knew that was going to have the newest stuff, have a good variety of stuff, and was going to carry code 3 things. And so that was really kind of his initial focus. And then they started looking at making it interactive, and they were doing family days, and they would bring out characters and all of these things and everything. And they started getting inquiries. Hey, that's a pretty cool concept. Like, would you guys be willing to come to my city and open one up? I've done it. I opened stores in multiple states. And when you're in a specialty business, sometimes that is very hard because there's a buy-sell aspect.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you need to be on top of your buying, right? Because I always say, like, I use the old poker adage, look, I'm from Vegas, right? It's hard to get the long run if you go broke in the short run.
Yeah.
And I believe in our hobby spaces, you can buy more than you could ever sell.
Oh yeah.
If you really, if you're a buyer,
100%.
you really can, right? So balancing that out is really key. So I think what happened was CJ really looked at it, Lauren and him talked, and ultimately they said, you know what? We could bring this model and give other business owners or potential entrepreneurs a way to build a business in their hobby space and something that they love. And so that's exactly what happened. They opened the multitude of stores. So they had Ripon open first. They opened Vegas. They opened Riverside, right? So those 3 stores were corporate stores. And I say were because there were just some changes that made, and I'll tell you guys all about those. And then they started to get into discussions with other markets and other people and started having those conversations. And then that's when North Carolina started getting involved. New Mexico came on board and so on, right? And then it kind of goes downhill from there. So they really looked at it as we could really help facilitate in these markets like a fun, interactive place, somewhere that they can come find the things they'd like. Because the number one complaint that CJ would hear when we do these shows is, I never find anything at retail. And that, I think, was the premise that kind of drove it to where it's like, I want to make sure that I'm offering an experience of people being able to come in and actually find the stuff, have an ability to buy it, offering pre-orders, doing the things in the diecast space that really hadn't been done. A few companies had done it. I don't want to say that we were first by any means, but what I do want to say is I think we were probably the first to perfect a lot of those things and to make it to where it was an enjoyable experience and give people an opportunity. And then to let enthusiasts that would like to turn this into a business have an opportunity to do that. It's great. And to touch on one thing that you mentioned, you talked about the fact that they're licensees and licensed locations. That was done very on purpose. It wasn't like they thought, well, we don't want to tackle a franchising or anything like that. Ultimately, CJ and Lauren sat down and said, we want to take the least amount of money out of our partners, right? Out of these people that are our licensees. We want to take the least amount of money from them on a regular basis and let them benefit if they can be profitable, if they can make that money, if they can do those things. So instead of doing what most franchises do, which is take a portion of your revenue as well as some type of initial investment, now we say, look, you pay your license fee. You've got some benefits to be a licensee. There's quite a few little things that are in the works. We got something that we have an announcement that we're not going to make it now, but when we make the announcement that we're going to make, it's probably going to set the industry on its ear. And those are all afforded and came through because we were able to help build this location by location and allow our ownerships to have a chance to be profitable or to be successful. Look, I can't make and sit here and say every location is perfect, right? They're small businesses. People learn, there's things and stuff. But what we see is steady growth from everybody. And that tells you that we're able to put together the right people, get the right things together, and really help build this. So when it comes to the license standpoint, that's exactly why there's a license concept in place and not franchises. And because of that, we made some changes because now you started to scale up all this stuff. First off, Lauren and CJ love to promote from within, reward those that have put in the effort and the hard work. So they came down to Las Vegas and they offered the Las Vegas location to Albert and his wife. Albert had worked for them for years. Albert had bent over backwards. He's Cool 51 Customs. He's spent years creating customs and exclusives for the different events and all of these things and going the extra mile and all this stuff. And CJ gave him a chance to be an owner with a business that was already existing, already operating, and already making money. That's
turnkey.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Pretty unheard of, right?
Yeah.
For someone just to come and say, hey, I'm going to let you have a chance to take this. And then he repeated it and went to Ripon. And Joe, who had been the right-hand man, the guy that had always been there, the guy that do or die, gave him and his wife an opportunity. And then recently we went to Riverside, and Steve Figueroa, who is was the manager, is now the newest licensee location of House of Cars, as he now owns the Riverside store. So we took corporate hands off of any of the stores to really truly let it be 100% licensee concept and to really allow that to benefit back to the community. And then the other thing that we did is that we took and our corporate site became a membership site. And that membership site has a lot more exclusives, more Code 3 stuff, more of like the base roots of what House of Cars was. And instead of you coming and buying the newest release of premiums directly from the corporate side, we actually want you to go to one of the stores and purchase from them, whether it's online or in person. So we really are focused on continuing to build this license concept to allow the ownership group to win. Because at the end of the day, that's what was most important to CJ and Lauren. And they knew that they were never afforded the opportunities to be able to get that type of a business play somewhere. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of grit. It was a lot of time. Most people don't realize the House of Cars and Toys website, that's been operating for upwards of 15 plus years.
Wow.
And whereas the retail concept is still fairly new within the last 5 to 7 years, right? So it gives you an idea like how they're focused on building this brand and bringing this in, of really making sure that everybody who's involved has a chance to be successful. And I think that's been a big part of why we've grown the way we have as quickly as it's happened.
Don't touch that dial. Diecast Breakdown will be right back after these messages.
Hello, this is Diecast Dude from the Netherlands, and you are watching Diecast Breakdown.
The Diecast Media Network store is here. Wear your passion with pride, featuring designs from Diecast Breakdown, flying Valiant builds, plus unique designs inspired by diecast culture from Justin Ellis. Visit tpublic.com/Diecast Media Network now. And now, the thrilling conclusion of this week's episode of Diecast Breakdown.
It reminds me, guys, of the model I learned one time about Chick-fil-A. They have operators and their licensees, and the investment initially is a lot to the individual, but it's not, like Steve said, not near as much as a franchise fee. And you get the power of that brand on your shirt, on your uniform for the employees. You get the power of that brand, but the operator takes ownership and turns it into whatever they want to turn it into within the company's philosophy. But the more they pour into it, the more they get out of it. So, I think you guys nailed it. I think CJ and Lauren nailed it. What a cool way to have people go into their community and pour their heart and soul into it. Like Freddie in Virginia, you always see the energy and effort he puts into his social media is really fun to watch, but you can tell like it's everything he's got in him to grow his business. So you guys are on to something.
Those are those owners that really do that, or there's owners that kind of sit back and grow their business a little bit slower and enjoy it and are satisfied with where it's at, but they're still providing that element to their community. They've brought something into the community that didn't exist. It was kind of a foregone conclusion that maybe at best there was a swap meet nearby that might have a 5x10 booth that might have a couple of tables set up with some diecast and a bunch of main lines hanging in the background, and that would be it, right? And gave these markets an opportunity. And I think in New Mexico is a really good example where, from a social media standpoint and everything, you guys wouldn't sit here and hear about New Mexico every day. But I'll tell you, New Mexico is absolutely one of the strongest stores in the House of Cars brand. Because he brought something to the market that they just never had. And that community support has been through the roof for him. So he hasn't needed to outreach as much, because what he has there in New Mexico and what he's built there, people are really supporting it and growing it. And then vice versa. These owners have other opportunities to be involved with other licensees, a lot of benefits to being an owner, a lot of opportunities to really kind of scale your business up and do things. And then on top of it, you got the support of an entire group. Whereas when you come into usually a collectible space, you come in and you own a store and you have nobody guiding you. You have no help. You have no suggestions. You have no nothing, no benefits. And to actually have that be offered in this capability in this space, I think that really has been massive for everybody. And look, we're just getting started, right?
Yeah. Steve, are you at liberty to say whereabouts in Washington the House of Cars, the new one's opening up, in general area wise? North, south, east?
It's a little more south. It's a little more south.
Yeah, Mark was right.
Yeah, because I'm in Washington. I'm in Washington, so I figured it'd be south, which is not a huge deal for me. It's a bit of a drive, but
yeah. So I came from the Pacific Northwest, so I'm very like dialed in. In fact, one of the stores that I opened, I actually opened a Portland location. I lived in Salem. I worked in Seattle, worked in Spokane. So I kind of understood it. And so we felt one of the things that we're doing is when we're being contacted, and look, anybody can reach out anytime. If someone is interested in opening a house of cars, I'll put it out there right now. You can send an email to myself, Steve at hocentertainment.com, and kind of have a discussion about what it would be. I'll put you in touch with the retail team. They'll talk to you about some things and what it takes to be an owner, and if that's something that someone wants to do. But what we do is we really try to build it to where you have an opportunity to build off of your license. So for an example, we'll talk about Las Vegas since I'm here, right? Albert owns the license for Southern Nevada, for Las Vegas. So if you came to Las Vegas and you're like, oh, I'd love to open a house of cars, Albert has to approve you. So you can't even open that location without Albert's approval.
Yeah.
And that way, that ownership group has an opportunity to work off of it. And then there's benefits. If they allowed you to come in and open a store, they would have residual benefits off of your store opening that would benefit them. So that way there's a long-term teamwork mentality and opportunity for people to build.
Yeah. Not competing against each other in the own.
Right. Because a lot of times licensee concepts, they do real small windows. 2 to 4 mile radiuses. That's all you get. Someone else can open one in the next freeway exit, those type things. We wanted our ownership group to have an opportunity to actually be able to be involved with the growth in their market and hopefully get everybody to work together on the same page, which at the end of the day, I think is incredibly important. So when I tell you at the beginning, it's a family atmosphere, it's a family concept, it's a family, it really is, because we want everybody to want to work together as much as possible. And look, just like a family, sometimes you're going to have some push and pull. Some people have different ideas. But what's great is at the end of the day, all of those things settle out and the dust settles and you can really see where everybody pulls together. And nothing tells me that more than when someone's looking for an item and they now have 9 locations that can tell them, hey, I can help you with that, before they have to exhaust any other opportunity.
That's cool.
Again, we are so stoked to have you on, Steve. I know we need to be respectful of your time and you've got a lot going on, but we're absolutely going to have you back on because we have, I'm sure, just scratched the surface at what House of Cars is doing. And we didn't even get to a Pawn Star story. We got to have you on, and I'm sure you've got some fun tales of toys and that whole side of things. We've had Fireball on talking about the showbiz side of things, so it's nice to have somebody else who's got some of that TV experience to share some behind the scenes gems with us. Before we wrap things up, tell people where they can find you, follow you, all the important digital data.
Yeah, so House of Cars direct for the retail side. You can go to houseofcars.toys. So houseofcars.toys, not .com. And check out the website there. Of course, you can find House of Cars and your local House of Cars location just by searching any of your social medias. They all have TikTok, Facebook, Instagrams, and so on. And then the Diecast Super Convention is diecastsupercon.com. Tickets are still available. Vendor floor and space is sold out. We're a month out from the show. We've released the programming. A lot of the exclusives. The Hall of Honor dinner is sold out, which is incredible. And that's a whole nother thing we should touch on at some point. And we've got a couple more announcements still coming out for the show. But definitely, if you can get to Las Vegas and come out for the SuperCon this year, it is going to be something you don't want to miss.
Yeah, there's a football game in a couple weeks, but the big event is the end of February, 2/29.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, we will link to all of that information in the show notes or the video description down below. So make sure you check that out. And again, thank you to Steve Johnston for coming on, and House of Cars for being very generous with their time and having Freddie on. And we're looking forward to having more folks from the team on to chat about this stuff, and we'll definitely have you on for a recap once the show's wrapped.
Oh, absolutely. We'd love to.
Again, thank you, Steve, and thanks to House of Cars for being here. And again, a shout out to our patrons who help keep the lights on here. If you want to join their ranks, you can visit diecastmedianetwork.com or diecastbreakdown.com. They both kind of take you to the same place. You can buy our merch. You can follow us on our socials. We've got a TikTok now. We're actually streaming the show on Instagram. SRT Jovita kicked us off on our first
Chuck's dancing.
Instagram. Yes, I'm doing my dancing challenges. We're doing what it takes, folks. We're playing the social game, and it seems like it's working so far. We're so proud of the folks who have joined us. Thank you for all the new subscribers. We had over 130 new subscribers last month, which is huge for us. So we're growing fast, and we're grateful to everybody who shares the show with their friends and Facebook groups. It's going a long way to getting the word out there. And again, shout out to Video Geek Productions, Donald Rashik, First and 64th Customs, TWYCE Diecast, and of course, drivendreams.org for making the show go. Be sure to check out the playlist, see some of the other videos we got going on. David's doing some really cool news and reviews. Mark's coming up with some really awesome shorts. So check all that stuff out. And as always, we want to thank you for coming along with us for the ride. So until next time, stay fresh, cheese bags.
Thanks for listening to Diecast Breakdown. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and tell a friend to listen in. Find Diecast Breakdown on your favorite social media platforms or visit diecastmedianetwork.com to learn more about this and our other projects. Diecast Breakdown is a presentation of Flying Valiant and the Diecast Media Network.